Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the truth and reality and the stories that we tell ourselves because I think it's easy to get them confused. More specifically, I'm going to be focusing on the negativity bias and how the stories we tell ourselves can get us confused and into hot waters pretty quickly. As humans, we have developed a negativity bias. This means that we have the tendency to notice and learn from negative stimulus more than positive. In early history, it made sense for humans to notice negative stimulus first. These were the threats. This was the danger. This was the things that could kill you. Our brains are hardwired for it. There's a popular saying that is, neurons that fire together, wire together. And over many millennia, we have learned to spot the negative, spot the danger, spot the threat, and keep us safe. That makes sense, but in today's world, there are not as many dangers and threats. They're not the same dangers and threats. It's not like a lion that's actively going to kill you or a poisonous berry that is going to kill you. I like to say that life is 50-50. You know, we're going to experience 50% good and 50% bad, and that could happen on like a daily basis or like over a lifetime. You're going to have good and bad. It's never going to be just all one or the other. Some people experience a lot of trauma, and as your neurons fire for all of this trauma, you become more and more predisposed to notice these negative things. That's why when you get 10 comments and one of them is bad and the rest are good, you focus on the one bad one. It makes sense. But some people are especially susceptible to this type of hardwiring in their brain. As a result, it causes us to hyperfixate on things, especially the negative. It causes us to overthink. It causes us to catastrophize. And it forces us to see the world as black or white. You know, it's a threat or it's not. And we focus on the threats. Now I want to talk about the truth. There are 4 different types of truths. There is the objective truth, which is like the factual evidence of everything that we can agree upon. This is very hard to come by. There's a subjective truth, which is the truth through your personal lens, and that's based off of you know, the things that you see, your history, your childhood, your traumas, your upbringing, your education. All of that is compiled to influence the way that you see the subjective truth through your unique lens. There's also the normative truth, which is like the collective truth. It's what we all believe to be true. Language is a good example of this. You know, the word that we have for red is not the same word in other languages, but we in English speakers collectively agree that the normative truth for the color red is red, not rojo like it is in Spanish. There's also the complex truth, which is where you have to decide which one of these truths is the best in any given situation. And it's not that easy to decide. Imagine you walk into a room. You know, you and another person walk into the room and you can feel the tension in the air and you immediately sense anger. There's a danger, a threat, you know, and the other person who hasn't had your life experiences walks into the room and just sees people chilling. They don't even notice. Which truth is the one that's correct? You would only know through context, but your subjective truth is still your truth. Stories, memories, they're malleable. I've talked about this in my other video as well. I'll link that in the card above. But we think that we know the truth so clearly. You know, there's factual evidence, like there's things that are written down, and we have to remember that everybody has a subjective lens to things. There are so many things that affect it. Every person involved has their own subjective truth and their experience based off of their childhood, their upbringing, their emotions, their education, their understanding of the situation, if they know the people involved, if they don't, if they know the language, if they know the culture. These things matter. Talking about emotions, they really affect your experience. So if you're in a car accident and, you know, the other person isn't, you're greatly threatened, you know, you feel like you're really in danger, that accident almost took you out, but the other person feels like it's just like a mild fender bender, your emotions are going to remember that much more vividly. Whereas a person that just thought it was a mild fender bender is just going to be slightly annoyed, maybe a little bit apologetic. A good example of this is Greg, my boyfriend. He has antisocial personality disorder. It's a disorder, not a disease. And he doesn't store memories like I do. I have a lot of emotions, so I store things much more readily than he does. I can describe days in detail, especially days that meant a lot to me, but he can't remember them. His emotional depth he has all of the emotions, but his emotional depth is a little bit lower than mine on some of them. And that's because of trauma. That's not because he's broken, and that's not that you can't get those back. He has been able to regrow some of his emotional depth. One thing that he's really good at storing, though, is song lyrics, because that triggered a lot of emotions for him. Because people with ASPD can feel emotions. They can feel a lot of emotional depth. It just is triggered by different things in different situations because we're different people having different experiences. So just because one person remembers something and it's a little bit different from somebody else's recollection, and just because you're reading a report by one person doesn't mean it's going to be the same as what actually happened or what the other person experienced. And neither is right or wrong. They're both having their own experience. When we get hung up on the good or bad, right or wrong, that's where we lose touch with humanity. We're all right. We're all having our own experiences, and we're all allowed to have these. But these stories that we tell ourselves, when we get hung up on them, when we get attachment to them, that's when we lose touch with our humanity and we lose touch with other people. Instead of focusing on what you collectively share, the humanity in everyone, you're focused on the details that are really not that important. There are reasons that you're seeking the answers that you're seeking, and that's fine. You're allowed to do that. But ask yourself what they are. And remember, when you're going to look at the truth, there are 4 questions you should ask yourself before you are convinced that you know the absolute truth. And these come from Byron Katie in her work, her self-inquiry. It's called The Work. It's amazing. The first question you ask, is it true? Ask yourself if what you're thinking is true. The thought, that the story you're telling yourself, is it true? Can you know that without a shadow of a doubt? Can you absolutely know that everybody in the room is going to agree with you? Because that's when you get like a circumstance. That's like a circumstance and a truth, like an objective truth. But when it's a subjective, emotional truth, it gets a little different. Ask yourself what reaction having that thought causes. How do you act when you think that thought? What do you do? What happens? Ask yourself, who would you be if you didn't think that thought? Would it matter to your life? In a year from now, is it going to really matter? The stories that we tell ourselves can become like prisons. They can be prisons that we live in and we get stuck in them. All of these rules every day that we live under. So many of us have all these self-imposed rules of what life should look like, what recovery should look like, what you should do as a parent, what you should do it this way, and what you should do with that. These are self-imposed rules that you're creating as a prison around yourself. You don't have to live up to them. A lot of these rules are old. They're culturally imposed, and they're from the patriarchy, and they're used to keep women against other women. Why are you doing that when there's enough abundance to go around? Women are stronger together. When you attack other people, it gets ugly fast. People get defensive. People have traumas. People get hurt. Look at what you have in common with each other. A way to get around this negativity bias, this tendency to see the bad in everything and everyone, is to counter it. Because like I said, neurons that fire together wire together. So you can unlearn this behavior. This is a behavior. This isn't a personality. This isn't something that you're doomed to live forever. Unless you keep it unconscious. Unless you truly think that you don't display that behavior, then that's your fate, babe. But you do display that behavior. We all do. We're all in this together. We're all connected. Ways to counter this negativity bias is to celebrate the wins, look for the good, assume the best, relish in the good, see the good in others. Assuming the best in a situation means that you're going to choose to believe the right thing is happening until proven otherwise. And when you're proven otherwise, ask yourself, does this matter? What are you getting at? What is the hang up here? Why are you holding on to this so hard? You can do practices like mindfulness, gratitude, expressing gratitude, random acts of kindness. There's so much you can do to see the good in others. And when you see the good in others, you will have a much easier time to see the good in yourself. To see the humanity in someone else and give them grace means you can give yourself grace. You can have the self-love that you're seeking. It's not external. The validation isn't external. You got to find it inside. But sometimes that starts by giving it to someone else, giving them the grace, understanding that you don't know it all. I don't know it all. You don't know it all. No one knows it all. That's all I have for today. I hope this was informative. I hope that this helps someone. Be weird, be kind. Bye.